Hello, mortals. I'm the Booktube Goddess, the number one drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And I'm coming a little late into this, but I am doing the mid-year list freakout tag. And yes, I am freaking out. Now, this is a very old tag that many booktubers have done. I believe the original tag was by some co-creators, one of whom is no longer a booktuber, but is a big YouTuber. Anyway, it's Earl Grey Books and Read Like Wildfire. And I'll link to these co-creators down below. Now, I've just been through a move and my life is a little bit chaotic now, and I haven't read as much as I wanted to. Therefore, I am indeed freaking out. Maybe I should have a little help with these questions. What is the best book you have read so far in 2021? Well, I am going to go ahead and say Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. Now, I had some issues with the sequel because I didn't think it had the same fantastic voice that Gideon the Ninth had. The sequel is Harrow the Ninth. But nevertheless, I was very impressed with Gideon the Ninth, and I highly recommend it. And it is sort of a blend of science fiction and fantasy where necromancers have taken over space. Yet there are mysteries involved. Gideon is a warrior who is sent to protect a necromancer in some trials. But what I really love about this book, as I think I've mentioned before, is the voice. The writing voice is in Gideon's voice. She is sassy, she is crass, she is funny. Check out Gideon the Ninth if you haven't already. And just a disclaimer that Harrow the Ninth, the sequel, is sort of a different book. And if you're expecting more of Gideon, you may be disappointed. What is the best sequel you have read so far in 2021? Well, I am going to say The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. This was the conclusion of the Poppy War series, which I began last year, and I read the sequel, the final installment in the trilogy this year, and overall, I was very impressed with the Poppy Wars trilogy. I think this is a trilogy that is a must-read if you are into fantasy. I should warn you that this is a grim, dark fantasy, meaning that it is not all sugar and spice and everything nice. In fact, it is a very dark story, but well worth the read. What is a new release you have not read but want to? Well, I am going to say Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, I haven't read The Martian yet. I know I'm the only one in the bookverse that hasn't read it, but I've seen people on my live stream talking about Hail Mary, and I believe it's gotten fairly good reviews in BookTube land, and I just need to read something by Andy Weir. Hopefully it's not a sequel to The Martian. I don't think it is. I believe it's a standalone. If I'm not correct, please let me know in the comments. What is the most anticipated release for you for the second half of the year? Well, I can think of only one book that I'm really looking forward to, and that is Leviathan Falls by James S.A. Corey. It is the final book, I hope it's the final book in the Expanse series. Now, if you don't know, James S.A. Corey is a pseudonym of a pair of writers, Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, one of whom, I forget which one, was a protege of George R.R. Martin. And you may have heard about this series on Amazon Prime because they have adapted it to, I think, a pretty good science fiction series. But the books are fantastic. There are many points of view. It is very epic. If you haven't started the series, the story starts very contained, and then it begins expanding and expanding and expanding. It's called The Expanse. It is one of my favorite science fiction series of all time, and I highly recommend you check it out if you are interested in science fiction. What is your biggest disappointment so far this year? Well, I've had a few disappointments in 2021, starting with The Project by Courtney Summers. The Project, I was expecting some type of horror novel, and it's this thriller about cults, and I just wasn't interested in it. I didn't engage with the main character, and I had to DNF it. There's another middle grade book I was very disappointed in, and that is Riverlands by Fran Wilde. I was expecting a portal fantasy, and it was more magical realism and a emotional journey type story dealing with an abusive parent. And maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I must say I was a little disappointed in it. Now, it's not a terrible book, it just, I think you have to be in the right frame of mind, and I wasn't to read this book. What is your biggest surprise so far this year? How about Legendborn by Tracy Dion? Now, this is a young adult fantasy, contemporary fantasy that I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I've heard a lot of people love it. So when I got it, I was kind of surprised that this is a story that is a reimagining of the King Arthur and Merlin mythos, and it is from the point of view of a young Black American girl starting college, even though I think she's a prodigy, so she might be like 17 years, I forget her age. But anyway, it's a young adult novel, and it's set in college. I think this should have been an adult novel and just age the character up to 18, and going forward, let her go into her 20s. But anyway, you know what I feel about young adult. It's a marketing category, not really a genre. But I really appreciated that this was an own voices novel insofar that this is a Black writer with a Black protagonist. Now, I've mentioned before, Cinderella is Dead. It was also a Black writer with a Black protagonist, but I didn't think that was an own voices novel because it didn't deal with any issues that Black women face in contemporary times. However, Legendborn does. And it deals a lot with maybe casual or subconscious racism that this girl faces coming into contact with a secret society that has grown out of King Arthur and the Round Table and Merlin the Magician. And I kind of had sort of this trepidatious feeling insofar that we are dealing with a very Western mythology, Arthur and the Round Table, and I was wondering how the young Black girl is really fitting into this, or how this one dominant Western culture is meaningful to the protagonist. But it is addressed. Not all magic comes from the Western sphere. We learn a little bit more about root magic, having its base in Africa. And all in all, I thought this was a very good book. Now, I did not love the romance in it. There is a strong romance, which you do find in young adult books. And I believe there is the beginnings of a love triangle, which may come to more fruition in subsequent books, because I'm sure this is the start of a series. In any event, it was a very welcome surprise. What is your favorite new author? Debut or new to you? I think I'm going to say Arkady Martine, because this is the year I read A Memory Called Empire and A Desolation Called Peace. It is a duology, science fiction, dealing with colonialism and meeting other cultures, especially if one is very attractive and dominant, what it will do to your culture. And it is just also a good old-fashioned murder mystery. Now, the first book, A Memory Called Empire, is not a fast-paced novel. There's a lot of politics, a lot of discussion, and a lot of mystery solving. Desolation Called Peace, which deals with the arrival of an alien species that declares war on humans. That has a little bit more adventure, but Arkady Martine's plots, at least for these two books, more deal with the interpersonal relationships of the characters. In any case, I think Arcady Martin is going to be an author that I watch out for. What is your newest fictional crush? I don't really like this question because I don't really have fictional crushes, but okay, let's just pick Murderbot. I read All Systems Red, which is actually a novella by Martha Wells, a very distinguished science fiction author, but Murderbot is a sentient robot cyborg. You're not really quite sure what he is, but he has broken free of his programming directives, and he is a very, or she, actually, I'm not even sure of Murderbot's gender. Doesn't matter. This being is a very interesting, very attractive, personality-wise individual, and I think I want to know more about Murderbot. What book has made you cry? Well, there's only one book that made me cry this year so far, and that is When You Trap a Tiger by Tay Keller. It is a middle grade book that I highly recommend for any age. It is a magical realism contemporary about a young Korean girl in America. I believe she's half Korean, and her relationship with her Halmani, which is her grandmother, and her relationship with her sister, and her mother, and her mother's relationship with her grandmother, or her mother's mother. It is a tearjerker of a book, and if you're interested in Asian cultures, or if you're Asian or part Asian like I am, I think you will really come to love Lily and her family. If you don't cry, you must have a heart of stone. Just kidding. What book has made you happy? Well, I'm going to pick House on a Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I know it's been out a while and people have talked about it, but I just read it this year and I can understand why people love it so much. Now, there was some controversy with the author, which I discussed in my video if you want to go see it. I'm not going to discuss it now. But needless to say, this book is about found families. It's a gay relationship. It's written in a middle grade voice, which I love, but it is an adult novel. It is extremely whimsical and easy to read. It's in many lists as one of people's top favorite books, and I think it's in mine as well. What is the most beautiful book you've received so far this year? Well, I mostly read ebooks, but I do pick books based on their covers, and I do appreciate covers. So of the books that I've read, just looking at the covers, I think my favorite may be Gideon the Ninth. I kind of like covers with image of the character on the cover, and Gideon the Ninth is no exception. And there is a necromantic background where Gideon is posing, and I really do like that cover. And I also like the cover of the sequel, Pharaoh the Ninth, which is in the same style by, I assume, the same artist. And what books do you need to read before the end of the year? Well, there are a few books on my TBR that hopefully I'll get to this year. One of which is The Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Heard a lot about this, and I believe it's young adult. It could be middle grade, but I believe it's young adult, and I want to check it out. I have yet to read the Nebula winner, A Song for a New Day by Sarah Pinsker, which is on my TBR, but I have read another of her books, her recently published We Are Satellite, which I definitely enjoyed, but it was more of a family dynamics and psychological journey of a family dealing with a new technology. Talking about We Are Satellite. A Song for a New Day is a post-apocalyptic novel about a rock star, so I definitely want to pick that one up. I also have yet to read 30 Names of Night by Zane Jakadar, which is a winner of the Stonewall Award, which is one I wanted to check out. It's about a Syrian trans boy and his search for answers about his mother, who was an ornithologist. So it sounds very quirky. There is a huge blurb when I looked it up, but it's on my TBR. Now there's one more book that's on my TBR that I haven't gotten to, and it's on Shelf It or Shove It, so I should have read it a while ago, but it is Flare in the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, I read his first book, Never Let Me Go, which I enjoyed very, very much, so I'm looking forward to Flare in the Sun, which I believe explores what it means to be human, dealing with artificial intelligence. I know this is a tag video, but I'm not going to tag anyone because it's already past the middle of the year. Feel free to do this tag if you want to. But first, like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. That's all I have, and until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.